it's a double opportunity. We can actually provide the lowest carbon LNG to jurisdictions that are looking for it. So we have a huge advantage.
Welcome to episode 34 of the Crownsmen Podcast. I'm your host, Jared Downey. My co-host is Gowdy Molina. If you're wondering why I'm talking fast, it's because we're on a bit of a time crunch today.
Yeah.
We've got a guest who I'm very happy that took the time to join us, Bryan Cox. He's the president and CEO of BC LNG Alliance, and their organization is I'm not going to do the thing where I try to explain it. I'll let him go through it.
Yeah.
But they're, in a lot of ways, they're at the forefront of developing the LNG industry in British Columbia. And I was doing a little bit of research just to sort of understand the scope of the LNG industry. And so I was found on Forbes, this is from July 2019, LNG right now is making up about 14% of the global gas usage. So that gives you an idea of the scale of LNG globally. And we're going to get into with Bryan a little bit about BC being part of that global market and how that is being accomplished.
Yeah.
Before we do that, we need to give a shout out to our sponsors.
Yes. Alrighty. And first up, we've got Savannah Equipment. If you need everything from slurry pumps to jaw crushers to ball mills to conveyors, you can go to the leader in new and used mining equipment. And you can visit them at savannahequipment.com, where you will find more equipment every day. I'd also like to mention, just a reminder, that we have rolled out a new series episode called the Crownsmen Specials, where we actually host one-on-one interviews with companies where they can highlight products, services, or new projects coming up. So please stay tuned, and you can visit crownsmen.com for more details, or email us, info@crownsmen.com. We're good?
All right, we're good to go. Bryan, thank you for coming on the shoit's
Great. It's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's an exciting time for BC on the LNG side, and actually globally, it's sort of an exciting time for the LNG industry. So I'm glad I've wanted to have someone from that industry come in for a long time, and I can't really think of a better person than the person who's heading up the organization, who's sort of organizing all these companies together. Right. So could you give us a little background of what BC LNG Alliance is, their mandate, their goals, how they were founded?
Yeah, absolutely. And again, it's great to be here today, talk about this really exciting new industry that we're building here in British Columbia, because let's remember, this is the first time in our generation we've had an opportunity to build a brand new industry, a brand new natural resource industry in British Columbia. So very exciting time. BC LNG Alliance was formed in 2014. By the leading proponents of looking to develop the LNG industry here in British Columbia. So it's been in operation not for very long, but now, and very importantly, we have our first final investment decision, which of course happened in October of 2018 when LNG Canada took their final investment decision. And wow, what a decision it was. $40 billion, the largest investment in Canadian history, made right here in British Columbia. And shovels are in the ground as we speak. So we were very excited about that project. The wood fiber project is very, very close to making a final investment decision as well. So we're very close to having multiple final investment decisions here in British Columbia. It's a place we didn't think we were going to be a couple of years ago. We all know what happened to the industry.
Yeah.
So it's a very exciting time, and it's really around, and you touched on it, Jared. There's a real global conversation around natural gas and the opportunity that it has to provide a real solution to the energy needs of the future globally. And British Columbia is incredibly well positioned, and Canada is incredibly well positioned to be a leader in that space moving forward. So there's lots to talk about with British Columbians and Canadians and policymakers about what this industry can be. And we at the BC LNG Alliance, that's our role. Our mandate is to engage with the public, to engage with policymakers, to engage with Indigenous communities, to basically engage in a dialogue about what this industry can be, and importantly, what we need collectively to be able to unlock this opportunity from a public policy perspective. How do we grow this industry? How do we do it responsibly? How do we do it in partnership? And that's something we're very busily engaged in right now, because again, that The demand is there for the product. We just we need to figure out the way to ensure we continue to build this industry and get our our responsibly produced resource to markets that are desperately in need of it.
Yeah. The I'm going to go. I want to talk a little bit more about how the organization is formed and how it functions. But first, I want to give viewers, because we do have viewers out in the U.S., back east. So a lot of people won't be familiar, and I could always be more familiar with the projects that are going on. So what are some of, you touched on them quickly, but what are those projects that are happening, that the shovels are in the ground right now and that are very close to being done?
Sure. So again, LNG Canada, final investment decision done. That's, of course, a pipeline is being built and the facility itself. So we can get into, what's the opportunity, what does the industry look like in British Columbia, but LNG Canada is sited near Kitimat in Haisla territory. That's where the facility will be. The pipeline will come, from northeast British Columbia to that facility. So it's a very large pipeline that's being built across northeast BC. And for those of us and your viewers from British Columbia, you know what an undertaking that is to build infrastructure through that part of our province. So it's a massive infrastructure project. It's going to take thousands of workers to make that happen. It's incredibly exciting. It provides real, true opportunities for not only jobs but careers for British Columbians, for Indigenous communities. It's a really important project on the path to economic reconciliation with our Indigenous communities, and very, very exciting. That's in the works as we speak. We've got the wood fiber project, which is located just outside Squamish, so very close to Vancouver actually, and that's a smaller project, but still a very significant project that will export as well. We've got the Kitimat LNG project, which is a partnership between Chevron and Woodside.
Right.
So that's in very active discussions right now. And really importantly around that project, they have announced that they're looking to proceed with an all-electric plant, which would be the largest plant of its size in the world to be all electric. So let's put that in context. Wood fiber will be all electric as well. Very exciting. So again, those are three projects that are looking to get into development. Kitimat LNG has not taken a final investment decision as of yet. They're still exploring their opportunity. Fortis actually has an LNG plant, and I think this is important to contextualize, is that they've had an LNG plant in British Columbia right in Delta since 1971. So we have been producing LNG and for storage, so that's why they produced it, was just for backup for the gas system. But we've had it here for over 40 years, so this is not new, but exporting the product is new. So Fortis has expanded their Tilbury plant and is looking to expand even further, because what they're looking to do is not only export, but what hasn't been talked about a whole bunch in BC is the domestic opportunity for liquefied natural gas. And that's really around our marine environment. So there's an opportunity to fuel switch from bunker fuel to LNG. And what does that mean? Well, that means that emissions get reduced hugely and particulate matter gets reduced hugely. The ships that are traveling the world right now, no country owns those emissions. So the ships travel the world, and there's no way to capture, who's emitting what. Well, what we can do here in Vancouver is create a LNG bunkering hub as we make this conversion fuel switch, and it's a step change in conversion when you see the reductions in greenhouse gases and importantly particulate matter, and we can talk about that and what that means in the export opportunity. But what's really cool as well is that the BC ferries have taken this opportunity, and they have switched their two main ferries. So any of your viewers that have taken a ferry lately from Swartz Bay to Tawasin, the Spirit class ferries, the big ones, are now on LNG. So not a lot of people know that, right? So so here we are, making this switch right here in British Columbia, and what does that mean? Well, the greenhouse gas emissions and particulate matter are reduced hugely on those two vessels going back and forth every day. They're making several sailings a day, and now they're running on liquefied natural gas. And it's a demonstration of what the opportunity is for LNG right here in British Columbia. Now imagine as we take this opportunity to parts of the world, like Asia predominantly, where we all know air quality is horrible. The World Health Organization has recently said that there's two main emergencies right now in the world: climate change and air pollution. 7 million people are dying every year because of poor air quality.
I saw that quote on your LinkedIn. I was reading that. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's a real issue, and those are 7 million people dying every year, but that doesn't take into account those that are suffering from health
Right, yeah.
consequences. Those are all the way from children right through to the elderly that are suffering from poor air quality. It affects people's quality of life. The lifespan. I mean, there's this huge issues around air quality. Liquefied natural gas can be a solution right now to reducing air pollution in parts of the world that are suffering hugely for it. And let's remember, we all share one atmosphere. This is reducing greenhouse gas emissions and particulate matter only helps the world and helps our atmosphere. So this is truly a real opportunity for British Columbia to play a global leading role in that regard.
Well, it's funny because in the circles, you get one people that go climate change is very real. Then you have people that say, well, is it as dangerous? And my position on is that I'm not a scientist, and what difference does it make? If if it wasn't true, would that be a reason to not do all these good things for the environment? It's so important. Do you think that is there a misunderstanding about LNG? Do you think? Like, I went onto your website. I'm gonna BCLNGA.ca. We'll put it up on
Correct.
Yeah.
but there's a frequently asked questions section on your website, which is excellent because for me, and I'm probably around the industrial sectors more than a lot of the average person, and there was a lot of questions answered that I didn't understand, even the way that the product gets reduced down so that it can be shipped efficiently and all that stuff.
Yep.
Is there just a misunderstanding even in BC about what the product actually is?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. And let's remember, this is just natural gas. It's natural gas that we are, to your point, cooling down to a negative 162 degrees centigrade. And when it gets to that temperature, it liquefies.
Yeah.
And what it does is that reduces the size of it by 1/600. So it makes it much easier to ship products across to other jurisdictions. But we need to contextualize the fact that we use natural gas every day, every one of us, every British Columbian, whether it's in our homes for heating, for cooking, and so it's really reacquainting British Columbians with the product that they've been interacting with for their whole lives, and saying this product that you use every day, what we're doing is just finding new markets for it, and by finding new markets, we're actually making a huge contribution to human health, and so it's a whole new dynamic of conversation with British Columbians and Canadians about what we're doing with our natural gas industry and what the opportunity is. Because the important thing to contextualize is this is about market, right? The United States has become fully self-sufficient on their own natural gas and oil, as we know, right? So we have only one customer right now, and that's ourselves in Canada domestically, but the United States is where we ship our natural gas. So as they become self-sufficient, and they're now becoming one of the leading exporters of liquefied natural gas as well, we need to find new markets, right? So the export opportunity is really the commercial opportunity for our industry moving forward. So that's why it's so important to develop this opportunity, especially on the west coast of Canada. But again, there's also projects on the east coast of Canada as well, because there's opportunities to get LNG into Europe. The projects here on the west coast are predominantly for Asian markets, which are, like I say, really, really in high demand for gas. Contextualizing, LNG as a commodity, over 40 countries are now importing liquefied natural gas. That's up from 10 only less than 15 years ago. So this has just hugely increased the number of countries that are importing liquefied natural gas, and they're doing so from countries like Qatar and Australia and the United States and soon to be Canada. So what's Canada's opportunity is that we have such strong regulations here. We do things more responsibly than other countries, and importantly, our product is produced at the lowest carbon emissions. Right, so all of our projects, LNG Canada, Wood Fibre, Kitimat LNG, Fortis's plant, every one of those proposed plants will be the lowest emitting plant in the world. Wow. So when you put that in context, the demand is so high for gas, so high for LNG, it's going to be, that demand's going to be met by somewhere. So if it's not being met by Canada, it's going to be met by a jurisdiction that's producing their product with higher emissions than we are here. So we have a, it's a double opportunity. We can actually provide the lowest carbon LNG to jurisdictions that are looking for it. So we have a huge advantage in that regard on just the responsibility of our product, how we produce it. And the regulations, the innovation, the companies that are producing it, the indigenous opportunities. It's just we've got a great story to tell, but commercially that doesn't get you an advantage. So we have to make sure that we have the competitiveness, the levers in place from all levels of government to ensure that we can be globally competitive in a world where there's multiple countries vying to be to provide this product to market.
And product-wise, BC is, I think that was actually on your frequently asked questions part of your website as well. They were talking about the capacity of BC, of the actual product that can be produced here, is just staggering.
Yeah.
What they can, just in BC alone.
Yeah, I mean, that's really what's been developed, and that's only over the last decade or so that we've realized the vastness of the Montney basin. It's a huge opportunity. It's over 200 years worth of product right now, and I know that there's talk that it's even larger than that as they do more exploration. So that's really powerful. I mean, there's the gas in Alberta. This is an Alberta opportunity too. There's lots of gas in Alberta that needs to get to market as well. So this truly is a Canadian opportunity, and I think that's the important piece of dialogue that we're having, is that this, like I said off the bat, this is our generation's first opportunity to build a brand new industry, and we're doing it in partnership. We're doing it in partnership with communities, with Indigenous communities, with all Canadians, and so we do have this incredible opportunity to build generational prosperity for Canada in a way that's sustainable, in a way that contributes greatly to the global benefit, and so it's really important to have that conversation with British Columbians and Canadians. And to your point, not a lot of people have thought about LNG. A lot of people don't even know what LNG stands for, let's be honest. And so there's this great opportunity to engage and have a conversation about what we can do with a product we've been producing for 70 years here in British Columbia. I mean, we've been producing natural gas. So we're just basically finding a new market for it, right?
Producing and not exporting.
Right.
And that's it's a really exciting time. Let's give a shout out to our quick sponsors.
Yes.
I want to get in. You've had quite an interesting professional career, and I want to get into that and why you shifted into the LNG market. So give a shout out to your sponsors, and then we'll go from there.
Alrighty, we're also brought to you by DataCloud. Does it feel like you're drilling and blasting blind? Could your MWD measurements be better? The DataCloud platform shows your lithology changes in real time for better blasting and fragmentation profiles. Check out their IoT sensors and cloud computing platform at datacloud.com and learn how you can know your rock today. Also brought to you by Streamline. They offer a complete package of fleet management solutions with 3 incredible products: NaviStream, their onboard intelligence and telematics system; NaviLink, their vehicle automation and IoT platform; and Dagama, their dynamic transportation management system. And you can visit stti.com for the Streamline advantage.
Both those companies are such cool companies.
Yeah.
The technology they do.
Wow.
I should send you links to them. It's quite interesting.
Absolutely. I mean, I'd love to see that.
All right, let's get into, I want to know how you started, because I was reading your LinkedIn profile there, and you've started off kind of in like the brewery and beer kind of industry. So how was that?
Beer to mining to LNG. It's a linear path. So I mean, my background is I'm a political science degree, so I've always been interested in public policy and governance, and so that's really where my passion lies, is how do we create good public policy that's balanced, that does the right thing, that ensures that people are engaged and feel that they've had a chance to be a part of public policy development. I think that's a really important piece of, especially in this day and age where there's so much ability to have conversations with social media and otherwise. We need to be fully transparent about how public policy is developed and do that the right way. So that's always been a huge interest of mine, and it really kind of translated into my professional career. And so I spent 7 years in the beer industry. I worked for Molson for 4 years, and what I did with them is I ran government relations, community relations, and communications in Western Canada, so across the 4 Western provinces. And in the liquor industry, it's all run provincially, so each provincial regulation is vastly different depending on which province you go to. So it's actually a very complicated business, the beer business, and we're seeing it with the cannabis industry as that's being built up too. I mean, there's a lot of different regulations, and they're different from jurisdiction to jurisdiction. But what I found most interesting about the working with Molson is you have a company that's been around since 1786. That's been family involvement for 7 generations, and you see that level of culture built within the company. And I really appreciated that culture of giving back to the community. So that was a big part of my role was how do we engage with communities in a meaningful, in an organic way, in order to build a brand, which really was the Molson brand. So what was really interesting for me is in the world of government relations and marketing and public policy, it's kind of a soft science, right? So it's tough to get metrics sometimes. And what was really powerful for me in the beer industry is that I was embedded with the sales team. So, as they looked to build market access, they would work with me in the community side on, activation. So how can we engage with communities to build brand? And then how can we track our sales to that to see if we're actually resonating with consumers? And so that was really powerful for me for the time that I was there, as I was able to actually see how the engagements and how to be real with communities and how that translated to them choosing your brand over another when they went to make a purchase. So that was very powerful for me from developing my career and how to engage meaningfully with communities, with stakeholders moving forward. And so after Molson, I actually ran the industry association that represented Molson, Labatt, and Sleeman. So I went to work with competitors too, that formerly, and worked on public policy to ensure the growth of the beer industry generally. And I always, during that time, I've followed the natural resource industry very closely, and I've always been very interested in it. My father was involved in the natural resource industry. He was a supplier. He had a catering company that provided food to work camps during the 70s and 80s in Alberta. So again, we lived through quite a downturn. We always think about direct workers, but suppliers suffer just as much, as we know when downturns happen, and so I lived through that firsthand, and it's always stayed very close to me. So I saw the natural resource space, and I looked at especially the mining industry, and I saw an industry that was doing all these amazing things in British Columbia that was so foundational, that was in every community, that was giving back all over the place, and I did not see it communicated anywhere. And I said, I really want to be a part of helping to tell the story of what mining is, because when you think about it, mining is everything. Everything that we do on a daily basis is brought to you by our natural resource industries, but really, truly importantly, mining. When you think about BC as a mining jurisdiction, the largest producer of copper, largest producer of steel making coal, very significant producer of gold and silver. I mean, it's an incredible mining jurisdiction, and just wasn't talked about. So I came on with the Mining Association as VP Corporate Affairs and sort of started building that up. 3 months after I started, Mount Poly happened, so great timing in that regard. And I say that jokingly, but what that actually really allowed the industry to do was really come together, because we had to get out there and talk about our industry. So it actually provided a sort of a stimulus for the industry to come together and say, okay, we really need to engage on this. And so that really, that was a very formative time as well for me to have that, especially public policy. Like how do we get the public policy outcomes from a situation like that, regulatory wise and otherwise, to ensure that we can still have the ability to mine in British Columbia, really, and in Canada. So that was a very powerful time. And then I had the opportunity to take over as CEO of the Mining Association in 2017, and really my goal in that role was taking it to the next level on communicating. So Jared, you and I were talking offline on copper and that the need for copper in electric cars. So what did we do at the Mining Association? Well, we got an electric car and we actually branded it and talked about all of the components, all the mining components that go into it. And we drove that around the Lower Mainland and other places, engaged with British Columbians saying, hey, did you know that every electric car takes 4 times more copper than a combustion engine? So as we build out this, electric car industry, we're going to need more mining, and it
Yeah.
just starts a new dialogue, right? Because it's like, okay, if we're going to do these things, we're going to need a responsible natural resource development. There's no country better positioned to do it than Canada. Again, because we've talked about it, we have strong regulations, we have strong innovation, we have excellent companies, and we've got the talent and know-how. And so why wouldn't we produce it here and do it the best way and take that technology and export it? Because that's another piece of the mining industry that's really interesting, is that we've got this hub for mining here in Vancouver. Not many people know about that, but there's hundreds of mining companies that are centered in Vancouver. They may not be doing business in British Columbia or Canada, but they're centered here for a reason. And why is that? Because of the services that are around it, environmental services, legal, engineering. We're the best in the world at it. So companies set up here so they can take advantage of those services and export that expertise to other jurisdictions. That is building a hub. That is what we're going to be able to do in the LNG space, is build a hub where we can take the cleanest LNG technology that we're building right now and export that to the world. So we can not only build it here in Canada, but we can take that to other parts of the world and improve this industry. So that was really exciting about mining. And of course, when the LNG opportunity came along, it was the thing I was seeing about mining is that there wasn't and still aren't projects that are moving forward from a shovels in the ground point of view. And I think that's something we gotta figure out collectively. And here we have an industry at LNG that's looking to build right now, and I really saw an opportunity to by realizing this LNG opportunity, we're only going to assist all of our responsible natural resource industries to continue to have the space to grow and provide prosperity and opportunity to all British Columbians. And that is really the key about these industries, is really engaging with our urban citizens, both here in British Columbia but across the country more broadly, is that there's a real disconnect between where wealth is generated out in beyond the city and what that connection is to our cities. And we're completely interconnected, especially through our supply communities. And so that's a conversation we need to have more collectively across our industries, and it goes for every industry, agriculture. It doesn't matter what we're talking about. We need to unify and talk about what it really means from an economic point of view, how our economy truly works, and how we're all really, really interconnected. And so I really see this LNG opportunity as being the sort of lead conversation in our country for that right now. And boy, what an honor it is actually to be part of this industry and have that dialogue with British Columbians, Canadians, and more generally the world about what this opportunity can be.
Yeah. You touched on something earlier, and about the U.S. The U.S. historically is neighbor, best friend, all of that. But from any business model, having one customer is, it's a bad idea on every level. And I wonder if enough people understand the opportunity of having a product like LNG being exported out, and how much strength that actually gives Canada, not just from a revenue standpoint or jobs creation, but from a global market position. That now, as economies, and because there is a global market, but it's also affected by countries as they grow and develop.
Yep.
Now you have an opportunity to be involved, and obviously, if you have more countries you're dealing with, the variables are lessened because you're not relying on one or two countries.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And I think that, I hope that people are starting to understand that, or that message gets out, because I think it's really, it is very important.
You're absolutely right, and I think that's the story of British Columbia. We are a very small, 5 million people, trade exposed industry. We trade. That's what we do.
Yeah.
We send our products, to other markets, and so this is an opportunity to find another market for our responsibly produced product. And in doing so, that like I've talked about, we're getting it to places in the world that really need it, and we're actually making the world, making a huge contribution to reducing greenhouse gas emissions, and importantly, particulate matter, as we talked about. So there's just so many benefits to developing this industry, this export industry, and in supporting these projects. LNG Canada is just a wonderful corporate citizen. They're doing great things. They're engaging in really meaningful ways with Indigenous communities, with the local communities. We are building this industry the right way, and it's very powerful when you look. So an example, the Coastal GasLink pipeline, which is the pipeline that's being built to provide product to the LNG Canada facility. All 20 of the elected bands along that route have signed agreements with the company CGL on that project for benefits. The Kitimat LNG project it's called the Pacific Trail Pipeline. There's 16 nations that are along that route. All 16 of those nations have signed onto agreements for that pipeline should it be built. The wood fiber project, the Squamish Nation did a separate environmental assessment review of the project, issued the first Indigenous environmental assessment certificate to wood fiber, and is a partner in the project. So when you think about these examples of what's happening in the community where lives are literally being changed with generational opportunity, and again, yes, these are jobs, these are also really importantly careers. And as we've seen in other industries, these are opportunities for Indigenous nations to build businesses that can service the industry long term and other industries in the province as well. So this is a very powerful time here in British Columbia, especially, but Canada more generally, in how we continue to build our natural resource industries so that all Canadians can participate, so that we can have prosperity in all of our communities. And this is a very important conversation that I know all British Columbians and Canadians are interested in, and we're doing it right now in the LNG industry. And so I think that's a really important topic that we need to talk more about, and we need to get out there, especially to folks in urban communities, of what's happening on the ground out in communities right now, how lives are being changed, how partnerships are being formed, how these companies are doing things in the right way, and they're not talking about it, they're doing it.
Yeah.
And so I think that's a really important fact, and that's the great thing about building great things. It's not easy. This industry could be a huge industry. Like I said, a $40 billion project with more to come. And so, when you look at big projects like that, they're not easy, but it takes bravery to do it. And you've got these proponents that are doing it. And boy, am I pleased to be a part of this industry and what's happening.
I have, you talked about stakeholders when you were working with Molson, and now obviously in this project, there's stakeholders at a massive scale as well. Can you identify how the LNG industry is approaching you say an environmental certificate from an Indigenous group? That's right? That's what it was.
Yep.
So you've got the stakeholders, you've got Indigenous communities, Indigenous groups. You have government, and when these projects of this scale take line, so government power changes hands. You have multiple companies. You have you have engineering. For so many stakeholders involved in this scale of project. Have you seen the LNG industry approach it any differently than other industries have, or have you seen things that they've done that specifically, so for someone watching here, that you can identify to say this is the right way to do it, or this is a new way of doing it that made it successful?
I think obviously our proponents are doing things the right way because they're getting their environmental, they're getting it done, right? So they are doing it the right way. Like I said, this is our first opportunity to build a brand new industry. So it's kind of taking what's happening today in the world and applying it to a new industry. It's happening in other industries, of course, as well. But in the LNG space, it's a new discussion. It's incremental growth. So it kind of brings people more naturally around the table to talk about how to make it happen. But it's not, like I said, it's not easy, right? So you've got multiple levels of government, you've got multiple communities, you've got Indigenous nations, especially here in British Columbia, where we all know the realities of not having treaties and unceded territories. Like Indigenous communities are partners, Indigenous, and so this is. So the way that this is being done by our proponents is the right way, and you could point to specifics, but just generally, what I've seen from our proponents, what I've seen from the LNG Canadas, the Chevrons, the Woodsides, the Wood Fibers, the Fortises, the AltaGases, the Exxons, is just a real commitment to doing things the right way, to taking the time to do things the right way, and to understanding that that it's going to take time in some instances to get things done. That being said, there is a finite amount of time that proponents can wait, because these are companies that are invested all over the world, right? So there's opportunities to be invested in other jurisdictions. What we need to continue to work with public policymakers on is creating that a competitive environment that works for Canada, that works for BC, but also really importantly allows for this industry to grow, because like I said, if it doesn't happen here, it will happen elsewhere. If it happens elsewhere, it's going to happen with higher emissions. So we can actually take advantage and build this industry out responsibly and have a carbon advantage over the rest of the world, which is really, really powerful in this phase we're moving into.
Yeah. We're not going to keep you for too long. I know you've got a meeting to get to, so we'll wrap up, and I'll touch on quickly that the BC LNG Alliance it's made up by, so who are the stakeholders in it? Just quickly, who are the stakeholders, and from it's not a, and we clarify this, want to clarify this for people who are watching. This isn't a membership organization where I go, but it's founded and brought together by who are the stakeholders that are involved in the organization?
So they're the major proponents that are looking to develop projects in British Columbia. So you have LNG Canada, you have Chevron, you have Woodside, which are partnered on the KLNG project, Kitimat LNG. You have Woodfibre, you have Fortis, you have AltaGas that has got the Triton LNG project, and you have Exxon, which has the WCC project, which both of those are kind of looking at investing right now. They're not proceeding with their project at this time. That being said, there's other interest in the jurisdiction from other potential projects as well. So there's an opportunity for growth for the alliance, but those are the main proponents right now that are looking to develop. That's the group that I work for. That's my board of directors, and what we're looking to do is create the public policy environment that allows for the development and growth of this industry. So that's my predominant mandate. And that's really a national conversation. So yes, it's being operationalized through British Columbia, but this is a Canadian opportunity. And so our dialogue is national in that regard. So I think we're in a very exciting phase. The work that we're doing right now will lead to the opportunities for growth for this industry for the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years. So it's an incredibly important time from a public policy development point of view, and a engagement with communities point of view, because we truly do have an opportunity to build a brand new industry. We're doing it. There's opportunities for growth, and what this will do is lead to just real generational change in our country, and allow us to continue to be at the forefront of being global responsible players in the energy space, which we've been for years and years. But this opportunity to take this to a new level, to have Canadians be what we've always been, which is the responsible provider to the world, doing the right thing. And so that's what this industry provides, and we're doing it.
And it's amazing to see the projects actually going ahead in this industry. So certainly won't be our last show on it. And thank you for coming on and talking to us.
Jared. Thank you,
Thank
Cody.
you.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Okay, we're doing a quick wrap up over to here. Where can people find us? Subscribe to us, follow us?
Yes, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, LinkedIn as well, all at Crownsmen P. What else? Listen to us on Anchor and all the wonderful podcast platforms out there. I won't go through the very long list.
And join the Facebook group. That's sort of the fun, chill version of the show, where we post everything up, and it's a pretty active group. So join us there.
Yeah, and just stay tuned for our Crownsmen specials. We've got DRA Global and Savannah Equipment doing their specials in the next coming weeks.
Yeah, DRA is actually here tomorrow in our studio doing their specials, so it's exciting. Okay, thank you very much for watching, everybody. We will see you on the next episode.